Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming Invitational Qualifier and 2-slot RCQ. I'm Tandy, joined by Raph Speed. Say hi, Raph.
Hi, Raph.
And we have 7 rounds in the books. We have cut to top 8, and we are ready to bring you not only the metagame breakdown, but those elimination matches to see who's going to be qualifying for the regional championship in April. I believe that's the one we're qualifying for in San Diego, but it could be the one after.
No,
that.
We're actually in the new season now. We're going
just started the new season.
Dallas in June.
Dallas in June. Okay, so these players looking to cash their fresh check into that tournament, as well as qualifying for the Apex Invitational in February. So a lot on the line here for these players. Give us the breakdown, Raph.
All right, so we've got 2 copies of Hammer in our top 8, 2 copies of this Fair Breach non-bow deck.
Non-bow breach.
And then we've got a smattering of one-ofs. We've got a player, Nick, on Creativity. We saw him play earlier today. We also have Dylan, our Scam player, that we saw earlier as well. And then the matchup we're going to be watching. So we've got Logan Hilbert on 4-color elementals with Fable of the Mirror Breaker. And then we've got Jeff. Jeff is going to be playing Amulet type.
Awesome. Yeah. So we didn't get to watch any Amulet today. I believe Jeff is the only player in the room playing the Amulet Titan deck, and it's Cash's ticket to the top 8. We're going to go ahead and head down to the feature match area in just a moment. The players have sat down and are likely ready to go, or just waiting on us. But we'll talk about the matchup a little bit. So, we have Amulet Titan, normally like one of the most powerful proactive decks in Modern, but lately he's kind of fallen off the map a little bit. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a number of things. One is that I think that a lot of folks in the past were playing a lot of Solitude. There's a lot of Solitude running around, and the deck's particularly weak to Solitude.
Well, this is an Elementals matchup, so you got to imagine there's going to be a lot of Solitudes being cast.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that we saw a lot of Scam and Murktides playing main deck Blood Moon, and obviously those will knock off the Amulet deck pretty well also.
Gotcha.
But as I said earlier, we haven't had as many Murktide players here. Rakdos was only a handful of folks as well, so the overall number of Blood Moons in the room went down, and so we have an Amulet player in the top 8.
Alrighty. The Elemental deck, do you have that list in front of you? Is there anything cool going on there?
I do. I can pull it up. So this is Logan Hilbert on Elementals. So it looks like a pretty standard. He's got a 4-main deck Renin 6, along with Eladamri's Call Ephemerate, Lightning Bolt, but the 3 Fable of the Mirror Breaker, and 4 Leyline Binding.
Interesting. So what's your take on the Eladamri's Call versions of this deck? Because I'm not a big fan of that card. I like it when you're playing exactly Ether Vial.
Right. So I think that the Eladamri's Call versions are a little weaker right now than, say, the Flamekin Harbinger full 4 Ephemerate versions. And for the simple reason that we see a lot of Izzet in the format, a lot of Ragavans, and Flamekin Harbinger is fantastic against Ragavan.
Okay.
But here we're seeing the creativity. We're seeing against an Amulet matchup, and I think that this version's slightly less well set up against Amulet because it's playing things like Lightning Bolt, like Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It's playing things to try to grind out these mid-range deck where Amulet's just going to go over the top of you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we'll see if the Amulet player can defeat the Elementals deck in the face of these Solitudes. I think that Solitude just knocking off a Primeval Titan just seems like a huge blow, right? Like I don't know how you come back from that other than just combo killing in the same turn with like a bunch more Primeval Titans.
Well, yeah, I mean, your first Primeval Titan theoretically could go get things like Teleria West to set up Summoner's Pact to set up the next Primeval Titan. Sure. But if, for instance, it's a Solitude that sticks on the battlefield and then we run into the Ephemerate problem, that's a lot worse. So we'll see exactly how the draws do line up here. Something that I also want to call attention to in the Amulet list that I saw is that our Amulet player actually has a couple of main deck Tireless trackers and less Explorers, which means they're actually not looking to be as explosive.
Okay.
So I think that might actually swing things in the favor of our Elementals player, because if, for instance, our Amulet player doesn't come out of the gate swinging immediately, the longer game certainly favors Elementals.
All right, well, we'll see if the lack of playing for Explorer is going to come back to bite them in this matchup. Maybe just leaning towards being a little more able to grind through mid-range matchups and less interested in, trying to combo kill quickly, because the format has broken down to being a lot more interactive,
Yep, something that's important also is we do see Logan here on the play by virtue of being the higher seed. This is our 3-6 matchup, but Jeff does have that turn 1 Urza Saga into Amulet of Vigor.
Yeah, now normally playing Urza Saga on turn 1, not the best idea because you won't be able to make the constructs before it really gets off the ground. However, in this build of Amulet Titan, the Saga goes and finds another Amulet, so it acts like a combo kill card on turn 3, which is pretty cool to play it on turn 1. But you also have those bounce lands like Simic Growth Chamber to return them to your hand so you don't lose them before you gain full value out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a very common thing that you'll see in some of these grindier matchups is Primeval Titan simply finding a couple of Urza Sagas simply to make some constructs and continue the grind if they think that their Titan's going to be answered. And here we see a turn 2 Leyline Binding to take care of that turn 1 Amulet.
Now, interesting to note that we had tap land into tap land, but that 2 tap land sequence allows for Leyline Binding on the second turn, so it kind of catches you back up from having those lands being tapped. We talked about that a little bit earlier in the day, but here we're seeing it come to full fruition. Jeff Hicks just passes on turn 2, so it looks like we're going to be floating him in next turn, and that Saga is going to be going to get another Amulet, and we'll see if Hicks can combo kill. However, it looks like he has Beseiju.
Yeah, I just saw that myself.
Leyline Binding.
Yeah, this Leyline Binding might not be long for this world, and if Logan doesn't have an answer in hand, and I'm not seeing a Solitude, he might not be long for this world either.
Yeah, so it looks like we're going to main phase fetch here. I saw Fable the Mirror Breaker peeking out, maybe going to go for a Fable, and if that's the case, then Hicks is going to have a pretty explosive turn next turn, I believe. Now, one thing to note is if a lot of the removal from Hilbert is things like Leyline Binding, maybe just a lot of those disenchants and those Beseijus are just so powerful against them because they're just a not reliable source of interaction.
Yeah, and the Amulet Titan deck certainly has access to a lot of main deck disenchants now with the printing of Beseiju, being able to find that off of something like a Primeval Titan, bounce it back to your hand if you find a bounce land in the same sequence.
All right, so Amulet going to get unlocked. Hilbert going to go searching for a land with a basic land type, can get a Triumph, tap land, whatever. And we're going to go back Hicks' way, but he's going to basically untap with the ability to have 2 Amulets on this turn, and a single bounce land is going to prove detrimental to Logan Hilbert if Hicks has any payoff and those bounce lands.
Exactly, and something else you love to see right now if you're Jeff is the fact that Beseiju can get any land with a basic land type, and it's a tapped Steam Vents. If that was, say, an untapped white source, it might threaten a second Leyline Binding, but with the Steam Vents coming into play tapped, that's not happening.
All right. Well, it's also important to note that like you can choose to have your land enter untapped if it's a shock land with Beseiju. It's not like Beseiju defaults to tapped. So the fact that he didn't go get a white source just means that the shields are down. Like he's just in trouble.
Exactly.
Hey, Bobo, thanks for the new sub. Welcome. Glad to have you. Here's the second Amulet, and then we're gonna go Simic Growth Chamber, floating a green, and now we're gonna have 6 total floating after the land gets bounced, because of the Saga float and the Forest float.
And here is Primeval Titan.
All right, and now we're going to go get 2 lands from the deck. We've already played a land for the turn, but if we get to float a bunch of mana, we can play things like Explorer and Dryad of Elysian Grove to give us extra land drops. We could go get something like Simic Growth Chamber and Talaria West, and that lets us transmute for something like Summoner's Pact, which can maybe threaten another Primeval Titan next turn.
It looks like we're going here for Bounce Land plus Beseiju. It looks like Jeff might want to blow up this Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
You know, if Hilbert doesn't have an answer now, blowing up the Fable means he probably won't have an answer next turn too. So we're going to make, 6 mana?
Floating 6 mana. Is that
Might
a
be another
second
Titan.
Primeval Titan? Oh. Yeah, and this probably is just going to go get Boros Garrison plus Slayer's Stronghold. Haste up these Titans.
You get to haste both of them up.
Yeah, we could just be done here. You get 1 untap for each of those Amulet of Vigors. Both of those Titans are going to be 8/6s with Vigilance and Trample coming in.
Yeah, if we have the double strike land too, we can give them one of them double strike, and this should be lethal.
Yeah, looking at Jeff's list, he does have a copy of Sunhome in his deck, and that's all she wrote. That's the turn 3 kill for our Amulet Titan player.
Turn 3 kill through a Leyline Binding. Impressive stuff from Jeff Hicks's Amulet Titan deck here.
All right, let's go ahead and look at the sideboard. We're going to go ahead and start with Logan Hilbert, our Elementals player. He's got a Hallowed Moonlight, a Dress Down, 2 copies of Auravar the All-Form, 1 Wear and Tear, 1 Beseiju Who Endures, 2 Force of Vigor, 2 Dovin's Veto, 3 Endurance, and a Flusterstorm. Todd, what do you like?
Well, this matchup has a lot of mana and creatures, so stuff like Flusterstorm's not going to get the job done. Nothing that involves a graveyard. Endurance is not going to get there. Stone's Veto, similarly to Flusterstorm, not going to be good enough if you ask me. I like a lot of the disenchants. I think Force of Vigor's coming in, Boseiju Endures, Wear Tear. I also like the Dress Down, as it can kind of turn off the Primeval Titan for a turn. It doesn't deal with the body, but it deals with the enters the battlefield effect, which is pretty good for 2 mana and cycling itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Force of Vigor is the one that I'm most looking at here. That card can be absolutely brutal against Amulet Titan. Things like
Dryad of Elysian Grove.
Dryad of the Elysian Grove, Urza Saga, Amulet of Vigor. There are just a bunch of things that gets incidentally hit by Force of Vigor, and that's going to be one of the more important cards. All right, let's go ahead and look at Jeff's Amulet sideboard. We've got 1 Cavern of Souls, 1 Boseiju Who Endures, 3 copies of Dismember, 2 Endurance, 2 Engineered Explosives, 3 Force of Vigors, and 3 Leyline of the Void.
So, Jeff Hicks's side of things, you know, you're playing against like a fair elemental deck. You're not going to be able to exploit them with things like Leyline or Force of Vigor. Their deck is just creatures and creatures that have good enters the battlefield effect. So without something like Torp Orb, you're just going to be fighting on their terms, which I don't think is that great. I don't love Dismember, you know, like you can maybe break up the Ephemerate Solitude turns, but most of the time 1 Solitude eating your Primeval Titan is enough. You don't need to stop the Ephemerate combos because like you're already behind. So I don't think much of anything comes in here from this side of things. The whole sideboard seems like very straightforward for other matchups.
So I slightly disagree here. I think we'll probably want to bring in some copies of Dismember simply because I really don't like Tireless Tracker in this matchup.
Sure.
I think that card's just a little too slow.
Well, they give you a lot of time, right? Like if they're killing your Primeval Titans, you just can play Tireless Tracker and have a bunch of bounce lands.
I guess that's true, but
they might be siding out some of their lightning bolts and things like that since we don't know deck lists.
Right. That's also true. I don't believe the players do know each other's deck lists for this event. But the other thing to keep in mind here is that you do have things like Omnath, right, where that can generate a lot of mana and a lot of card advantage, and just having some answers to that might be useful.
Yeah.
The other thing is you might consider the extra copy of Boseiju as well, just because you know that your opponent's primary form of interaction is Leyline Binding, and they have Fable with the Mirror Breaker as well.
One thing I try to teach people about Magic in the year 2023 is instead of playing like Knight of Autumn or Reclamation Sage or some other creature that has like a disenchant effect, just play more Boseiju. It's basically a bad disenchant, but at the worst case scenario, it's a land. And when you're playing a deck that cares about your land drops, Boseiju's great.
I mean, hard to argue with you there. Personally, as someone who enjoys a Knight of Autumn, I'm not sure I'm going to listen to you.
Well, you got Quarter Calling in your modern deck, so that's a little bit different.
That's true.
And they have Summoner's Pact, so maybe it's a little bit different there too. But I don't think there's any Reclamation Sages in this build of Amulet Titan.
No, I didn't see any Summoner's Pact targets other than the Titans, the Tireless Tracker, and a main deck Cultivator Colossus.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the Dryad of the Elysian Grove. The point is we don't have any sideboard targets for the Summoner's Pacts.
All right, so players here are shuffling up for game number 2. Jeff Hicks did win game number 1 with that explosive turn 3 kill with the double Amulet Titan draw. Urza Saga going to get Amulet, one of the more disgusting additions to the archetype, as well as giving the deck just a powerful land to tutor up with Primeval Titan. They can grind through a long game. You know, like a lot of these Scape Shift style decks from back in the day, you know, they would have a land that allowed them to play like a more fair game plan, you know, like your Urza's Factory type stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And Urza Saga just being that thing for this build of Amulet Titan is just very cool. Not only because it can get Amulet, but also because it just allows you to win the game without casting spells, which is crazy.
Yeah, it looks like potentially a land-heavy hand here for Jeff. I'm not sure if he's going to be keeping that. It looks like Logan did mulligan. But it looks like, yeah, Jeff's going to send that one back. Although it did have one of a great new addition to that deck, or new-ish, which is Arboreal Grazer.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, have you heard the nickname for Arboreal Grazer?
Oh, yeah, it's Blocks Diamond.
Blocks Diamond, one of the best nicknames, I think, in quite some time.
Yeah, I created a Twitter thread the other day where I was just asking people, like, what their favorite nicknames are for cards, and Blocks Diamond was mine. I don't love Arboreal Grazer as a card. Whenever I play it, I always mull to 5 and don't have enough lands to do with it. And whenever I play against it, it's just the stone cold nuts. It's turn 1 extra land and an 0/3 blocker that stifles all of my aggression, you know.
Yep. So what are some of your other favorite nicknames?
Bob for Dark Confidant.
It's a good
that
one.
One's a classic, based off Bob Marr. What else we got? I'm gonna come up with some Underworld Breach. Let's come up with one for that. Call it breaches.
Let's see, there's actually a card called Breaches.
Is there?
Yeah, it's from Commander Legends, though. So
I thought it was going to be an uncard.
No.
Your breaches.
All right, we're off to start here. We've got Jeff Hicks on an Urza Saga yet again, and Logan with an Endatha Triumph into a Windswept Heath. Looks like Jeff's just got a Forest and Pass back, and we've got a Cracking of the Heath from Logan.
All right, what set is that Windswept Heath from? Because it looks kind of cool, but I don't think I've ever seen it before today. Multiple people have had it today, but I didn't know that.
That frame is the box toppers from Zendikar, the most recent Zendikar set.
Oh, cool. Zendikar Rising?
Zendikar Rising, yeah.
All right, well, Windswept Heath going to find a Rogran Triumph. We got our mana activated. Logan Hilbert's Way, turn 3. Let's see if he has a play. Hicks threatening a Amulet of Vigor next turn off of the Saga. We'll see what he can do with it.
Yeah, we see Risen Reef here flipping a land into play. That was a Flooded Strands, and we got a float mana from Jeff Hicks, and we're almost certainly going to go find an Amulet of Vigor.
Yep, and if we can play Primeval Titan this turn, Hilbert's going to need something like Solitude and a white card, but after a mulligan is very low on resources, so Hicks is going to get the 2 lands off of it if that is the answer, and then maybe is able to follow that up with something powerful next turn.
Yeah, it looks like Hicks is taking a look at his hands, just checking to see what's there. I did see a Primeval Titan as well as a Summoner's Pact, but I don't believe Hicks has enough resources here to cast a Titan this turn.
Okay. Looks like he was maybe thumbing over an Expedition map as well to potentially just continue hitting land drops. Again, both players were on the mulligan or the double mulligan, and so a very low resource game, and you're going to want to try to squeeze out every little micro advantage out of these cards that you can. So that's floating a mana. That's land 2, land 3. That looks like a Dryad of Elysian Grove.
That is what that is.
And we'll play Besage You as land number 3. Back Hilbert's Way.
All right. So here's another question for you, Todd.
Yeah.
When you're playing, do you have some favorite basics? Because these players looks like they've got some nice basic choices.
Logan Hilbert's in play is one of my favorites. It's the Lightning Bolt Plains. Mm-hmm. It's the one that it's not Avon, but it was reminiscent of Avon when it came out. I believe it's Odyssey original printing.
It is, although I believe that one in play there is actually from Dominaria Remastered.
Oh, cool. Dom Remastered had a lot of really sweet lands in them. We actually got to pick through the land box earlier and look at them. So,
yeah. Definitely Dom Remastered lands, because that's one of them as well. But that's some nice basic choices from our players here.
Yeah. Honestly, the Onslaught Forest there, too, from Logan is one of my other favorites as well. So, old school player with some old school lands, it seems like. And here comes a Fury. That's going to trigger the Risen Reef to draw a card, and it's going to take down Dryad of Elysian Grove. Jeff Hicks on the back foot.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff almost certainly needs to find an Explore here in combination with a Bounce Land or something like that to be able to deploy a Titan. Otherwise, he is going to be certainly up against it. Looks like a Teleria West was the pickup, and that will be the play. That does not inspire a lot of confidence from the Amulet Titan player looking to get to 6 mana. I believe the rest of their hand is just 2 Primeval Titans and a Summoner's Pact.
Well, not a lot you can do. If you Summoner's Pact for Dryad of Elysian Grove, you just don't have lands to play. But, it's kind of weird to say, oh, I'm mana screwed. You have 4 mana in play. But this deck has over 30 mana sources, right? It's over half mana. Because mana is so important, you have to hit 6 as quickly as possible. And you do that in a number of ways. But just hitting your land drops doesn't always do it.
Yeah, that's going to be a chunk for 7. I believe that was a Prismatic Ending picked up. And nice that's going to take care of the Amulet of Vigor. And I believe Jeff is on very slim outs at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what one draw does it. It's going to be a combination of draws, but the Fury itself, with the Kahira just put in hand, is not quite lethal, so Hicks does have one more turn, more than likely.
Yeah, that's only going to be an attack for 10 next turn. But we'll see what Jeff's able to find. I didn't get a good look at what the draw step was.
Now, a little bit of interaction can go a long way against the Amulet Titan deck. It's somewhat insulated from a lot of your traditional removal, like, Path to Exile, Prismatic Ending. These things aren't that great, but they do have targets. And when they do come up and you're low on resource from a mulligan, and you don't just, have those explosive turn 3 double Titan draws like we saw in game 1, that little bit of interaction is sometimes enough to get the job done. I think that's kind of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, it looks like the draw was a Gruul Turf that picked up a Besage You. But it's hard to think that that's going to be good enough here.
Yeah, without Amulet, there's no combo kill potential. So I'm curious what the sequence is going to be for Hicks next turn to potentially kill.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at Hicks's list here to see if he has something like perhaps a Dryad Arbor or something to create a chump blocker, but
Yeah, Colony Garden.
Colony Garden, but it doesn't look like there is anything. I think Hicks is drawing pretty dead here, but we'll see what does happen.
All right, we're going to main phase a Boseiju on the bounce land that's going to replace itself, but it effectively -1 mana as Jeff Hicks. And without Amulet of Vigor, there's very few ways for him to generate 2 mana next turn to cast a Primeval Titan. And even if he did, I don't know if he could build up enough of a defense to save himself without something that like gains a bunch of life or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to see Jeff Hicks pick up his cards and go to game 3.
Appreciate these players playing quickly for us. I am ready to eat some wings, etc. I'm hungry.
No, same here. But just taking a quick look, I do think it's likely that Jeff did bring in at least a couple cards here because of that Boseiju. Because of this Bajuka Bog that's in his main deck. His opponent isn't doing anything with the graveyard. That Bajuka Bog is just tap land at that point. And it's likely that the Boseiju is a little more impactful. But other than that, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of sideboarding from either player here. They both know the game. Jeff Hicks is trying to ramp out an early Primeval Titan, and our Elementals player, Logan, is just trying to disrupt just enough to cross the finish line.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. I think that pre-sideboard, decks like Amulet Titan are often favored because your deck is just chock full of lightning bolts and things like that. And after sideboard, you get to take those mediocre or dead cards out of your deck and replace them with things that actually disrupt the opponent. Those disenchants, the force of vigors, those are all going to come into play. We saw that game, like we had prismatic ending, something that's not usually that good against Titan. It took out the Amulet in a weird spot, and then that essentially locked the Amulet player out of the game.
Yeah, so we'll see who can prevail in this third game. We're going to have Jeff on Amulet being on the play. But the Elementals player Elementals decks in general just have so many free spells that might not be that much of a detriment here.
All right, both players shuffling up here for game number 2, a couple of POW shufflers.
So, Todd, I know you mentioned wings, etc. just now.
Yeah.
All right, so what's your go-to wing flavor?
Well, every time we're here, we eat there 3 times. And so I have to mix and match what I get. One day I get a cheeseburger, another day I get a salad with chicken on it, another day I get wings.
I see.
Normally I get a combination of sauces. I get like a spicy buffalo and barbecue sauce. Mix them together. It's usually pretty good. Then, the chicken salad, get a little blue cheese on it. It's my go-to dressing at most restaurants. And then what was the first thing? The burger, just cheese, tomato, ketchup. That's my jam.
All right. That all sounds great.
Now, they do have tater tots. Not tots. Yeah, they have tater tots. And Ross likes to get the Jamaican jerk seasoning on the tots.
I was told I have to do that in his honor this weekend, and I absolutely will. Ross, if you're still with us, I fully intend to get your jerked tots.
So Hicks here, looking at a hand that was not suitable, going to go ahead and take a mulligan. Going to be shuffling up here as we get ready for game number 3.
Ross is still in chat. He says, I better.
Yeah, you better.
Yeah.
You bet. Sweet Chili Cha-Cha is Taryn's fave. That's fair.
That sounds delicious, Taryn. I'm going to join you on that one.
All right. Well, why don't you just ask for a sauce sampler? You can be a little dipper guy.
Can I do that?
I don't know. Well, we just got confirmation that Taryn is the manager at the Wing Etc. So let's get that sauce sampler, boys.
I got a dinner plan, folks.
Look, it's good to have a sideboard plan, but it's better to have a dinner plan. That's all I know. Hicks here are going to be mulliganing, putting at least 1 card back. I'm not sure if he's on 6 or 5. I think it's a 1 card. I think it's
a 6. And we got Blocked Diamond.
Not the best card in this matchup, honestly, because the defensive nature of the Arboreal Grazer is often the strongest part. Otherwise, you'd want to be playing, things like Sakura Tribe-Elder or whatever. But the fact that it costs 1 just gives you something to do, and with bounce lands, right? Normally putting a land from your hand it's acceleration, but it's not like replacing itself like a rampant growth. But when you put in a Simic Growth Chamber or one of those bounce lands, it kind of functions very similarly to a rampant growth for 1 mana.
Yep, and there we do see our Boreal Grazer. He's just a little guy. He's
Just a little
hanging out. Dryad of the Elysian Grove coming down as well. It looks like Jeff does have a Primeval Titan at the ready alongside a Teleria West.
Yeah, doesn't play the Talaria West though, even though doesn't have access to Amulet of Vigor. Maybe he wants to save that to find Summoner's Pact or something to have a backup Primeval Titan, but no land after the mulligan, and you have to imagine that Logan Hilbert is ecstatic.
Yep, so we'll go ahead and see what Logan does have, but yeah, that not playing an additional land after Dryad, that's definitely an interesting one, especially with the land available to him.
As the kids say, that is cap.
Is that what the kids say?
Yeah.
I have no idea what cap means.
I am on Twitch a lot. New sub from Ross Miriam. Was that a gifted sub or did he use it himself?
That was indeed a gifted sub,
of course.
For Mr. Jonathan
Mr.
Parker.
Cheapskate over here.
Yep.
That's okay. We love Ross. We like to give him a hard time. All right, back Hilbert's way. Passes the turn on 2 with no play. Hicks is turn 3. Has access to 3 mana in play. A Talaria West in hand, but can't. Oh, if that's a Simic Growth Chamber, I honestly have no idea.
I believe that's a Celestia Sanctuary.
Celestia Sanctuary.
Yep.
Who could possibly know? All right, Sanctuary going to bounce a land. We have 3 floating, so we can play Cavern of Souls and name, Titan or Giant rather, for the Primeval Titan, and we get to play the Cavern of Souls as well. And we float a blue mana off the Dryad first, right? And then when we play it again, we can float blue mana off the Dryad again. And so now we get to transmute Talaria West, even though we have no literal blue mana in play.
Yep, that Dryad of the Elysian Grove doing work. Those lands are all basic types in addition to their other types.
Yep. A really cool combo with things like Valakut the Molten Pinnacle. It reminds me a lot of back in the day I used to play Wargate in my Scapeshift decks because we'd play Prismatic Omen. And you had kind of like that toolbox engine, and Dryad of Elysian Grove plays very similar to those Prismatic Omens and gives you that combo kill in this deck with Valakut that you just didn't have before, which is kind of cool considering that the deck used to need the combat zone to actually win the game. Now you don't, so you can just kill them with Valakuts.
Exactly, and Jeff's got a basic forest flip to the front here.
Well, maybe he doesn't want to get Blood Mooned? Question mark? Don't know. Maybe it just has something to do with the floating mana and the forest, and I don't know. Maybe just wanted a guaranteed untap land next turn for Primeval Titan.
Could be. I believe he's already played. I think that's actually what it is. I think he's already played both of his lands for turn. So we're just looking to get an untapped 6th mana, which certainly signals to Logan, hey, yeah, I've got the Titan.
Yeah. All right. And Cavern of Souls already naming Giant, I would guess. And so no counter spells from Hilbert can stop it, except for Subtlety, Ether Gust. These are options that don't technically counter, just kind of say, hey, put that on top.
Yeah, I don't believe that Logan does have access to either one of those cards. We'll go ahead and double check on that.
Yeah, Elementals decks often play some number of Subtlety between main deck and sideboard. It's usually very low and often cut.
Yep, it looks like Logan does not have access to Subtlety.
Okay.
So Logan, in order to interact with this Titan, is basically just looking at Dress Down. They could also besage you one of these bounce lands that would keep Jeff off of the 6th mana that he needs. Question from chat. Lead Nick says, Blood Moon doesn't work against Dryad, doesn't it? So it basically doesn't work against Dryad, but it does shut off the ability of the bounce lands to tap for 2. They can still tap for any color, but they do lose that ability to tap.
Yeah, and lands like Valakut lose their ability as well.
Yep, exactly. And here we do see Primeval Titan, but it does look like Logan has the Dress Down.
Okay, so we're going to play this in response. That's going to nix the ETB of the Primeval Titan, and we're going to get to draw a card off the Dress Down. And then Jeff Hicks, though, does have a Titan that's just sitting in play. So if there's no removal spell from Logan Hilbert, it can attack next turn and just do its thing anyway.
Yeah, Logan's looking right now for a Solitude or an Eladamri's Call to go find a Solitude.
All right.
Hey, all right. I'll address the Blood Moon Dryad thing, but
it's fine. So 406 just wants you to know, my man Elliot here, level 3 judge, knows the rules inside and out. Asserting that you are correct in this situation is likely folly.
No, real comments actually got the right of it here. So Blood Moon, I actually shortcutted a bit in my brain as well, but real comments right in that Blood Moon here actually would be effective against Dryad. It's a timestamp issue because they're both in the same lane.
Ah, damn.
Yep.
Never mind. My apologies.
No, I mean, I appreciate you sticking up for me, Todd. Most of the time I'm going to be right, but hey, I've been commentating all day and I'm fallible just like anyone else.
Yeah. You're fallible. I'm fallible. We're all fallible.
All right, here we do see an Omnath coming down and drew a card there. I believe that was a Fury that was picked up.
I'm embarrassed.
It's okay. I got it wrong, too. I'm the one who should be embarrassed.
All right. Well, here comes the Fury, dealing 4 damage to the Titan. And then...
yeah, so the Dryad, actually.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Killing the Dryad of Leasing Grove. And now, though, looks like we're going to get to attack of the Primeval Titan. Got to be in good shape if you're Hicks, right? What are you going to go get?
Yeah, I mean, taking care of that Dryad definitely helps because that shuts off the Valakut lines. Ross says, imagine being fallible couldn't be me.
I don't know. I've seen Ross be wrong at least once.
I mean...
One time Ross went Summoner's Pack looking for a Reclamation Sage that was not in his deck. And it resulted in maybe the most awesome meme face I've ever seen.
And we've got a Summoner's Pact here from Jeff Hicks. That's going to go find a Dryad of the Elysian Grove. So it looks like Jeff is going to go for that Valakut line.
Okay.
Imagine we're going to see an Omnath shot to death by mountains here very shortly.
Yeah. All right, well, Dryad of Elysian Grove, going to come down. Jeff Hicks likely going to go search up something like a Bounce Land and the Valakut, be my guess. Has the Amulet of Vigor too, so this might be a full kill this turn, depending on what happens.
I think it's unlikely to be a full kill here, but we will see. He's going to have to find Valakut plus another land. And that's...
Is there only one Valakut in the list, or are there two?
They got 2, so he could find 2 Valakuts here. You got a good point there.
If he has a Bounce Land in hand, he technically hasn't played a land yet. So if he goes and gets 2 Valakuts, he does 6 to a target. And then every Bounce Land is a deal 6, return the Bounce Land to hand.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. And yeah, I was going to say we might not see a full kill inside of combat, but certainly if 2 Valakuts are part of the equation here, we might see it this turn.
Yeah. If we had an advantage bar, it would be breaking the right side of the screen for Hicks here because the attack of a Primeval Titan is often terrifying. And here we're seeing Simigrowth Chamber and Valakut, so that's going to deal 6 damage with the Valakut triggers as long... Let's see, 4, 5, 6. Well, actually, we have to return a land, right? And so I guess you can stack it so the Valakut's trigger and then the Bounce Land resolves.
Correct.
Yeah. And so that's 6 damage to face. And now we're in a situation where we have to chump block because the Bounce Land's just 3 more damage on the play.
Yeah, we do see Logan dropping to 9 there. They'll go to...
We still have 2 land drops. I think the game's over. We haven't played a land yet.
Yep, we'll see if Logan finds it, but...
Oh, maybe life totals I was slightly off, so maybe we're at 7, so it's only a 6 hit instead of a... I thought they were going down to 5. That's my apologies.
No, they're going to 7, but I mean, if they haven't played a land, yeah, that's only 6 damage, so you'd go to 1.
All right, so Bounce Land, going to pick itself up, going to deal 3 to face. Going to put Hilbert to 4, and then we have 1 more land drop, I believe. Oh, we called it out. Okay, cool. So two land drops, 6 damage to face. Bounce Land in hand, Dryad. Here comes an Omnath. It's going to have to be a real good Omnath.
Solitude plus good stuff, and I don't see a Solitude anywhere.
All right, well, we can play a fetch land, gain 4 life, and then fetch and get 4 mana, and then 5 mana with tapping it. So we'll see if Hilbert has a way out here. An answer to Dryad of Elysian Grove might buy half a turn.
Yeah, I mean, you still got to gain some life. You'd need a land plus an answer. And, I mean, the only thing that answers the Dryad that doesn't answer the Titan would be the Fury. But you also just have to deal with the Dryad at this point because the Valakut's lethal on its own.
Mm-hmm. All right, Hilbert, what you got, buddy? We got fetch. We're going to go to 5. Hilbert, fetching down to 4. We're going to find a land that's going to generate 4 mana from the Omnath, 1 mana from the land, so we have the potential to play a 5-drop spell.
Yeah, I was taking a look at Logan's hand, and I believe it is just lands and a Risen Reef. So we're just going to need this Risen Reef to pull out some miracles here.
Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything that can do it. And I don't think that there's any one card that does it. So let's take a look at the top card. It is a Fury, and that's going to do it. Jeff Hicks takes the match 2-1 against Logan Hilbert. Amulet Titan defeats 4 color elementals.